All right. Hello, everyone. Hello. How's everyone doing today? Good. It doesn't sound good. How's everyone doing today?
Doing good.
Good. So welcome to the Bloom Bright Leadership 101 training. We're really excited that all of you are here today. But just before we get started, here are just some logistics that we want to cover. On your phone, please make sure to have them either on silence or silence and D&D. And if you want to use the bathroom or the water fountain, you can find them to your left over there, and there's no food and drinks allowed in this room other than water. In case of an emergency, please exit through one of this or those doors, and the noise level here should be maintained at a library level, although this mic is probably louder than all of you combined. And then also, I'm pretty sure everyone's fine, but users of this room should comply with the behavior policy of the Santa Clara County District's library policy. In this presentation today, we will just start off with a brief introduction and kind of talking about mainly two different things. We're going to be talking about approaching leadership from a new point of view. So you might have heard of other things like characteristics of a leader. But today we're going to be covering something that you most likely haven't heard of before. And then at the end, we're also going to be going over some tips for finding a new leadership role and how to apply for them. And we'll end by Q&A. And just to introduce ourselves, hello everyone, my name is Sanghyuk. I'm a junior at Homestead High School. And one fun fact about me is that I am allergic to watermelon.
Hi everyone, my name is Saanika Patel. I'm a senior at Homestead High School, and one fun fact about me is that I'm CPR and first aid certified.
Yeah, so throughout this, so if you got a book bag, and if you turn to the back, you will see this exact quote here. This is kind of a quote that I would like all of you to keep in mind throughout this workshop and see how you can possibly learn from this workshop to really make this quote into your daily leadership. So just to read a quote, when you were made a leader, you weren't given a crown. You were given the responsibility to bring the best in others. So just keep that in mind.
All right, and before we get started, we're gonna do a really quick 15 to 30-second reflection. So here are the questions on the board. Why are you here? What does leadership mean to you, or how do you think of someone exhibiting the qualities of a leader? And what kind of leader are you right now? And what kind of leader do you want to be? So you can silently reflect, you can talk about it with the person next to you. But we'll just give you 15 to 30 seconds to talk about this. All right, is anyone brave enough to share what any of the answers to these questions? No, okay. How about I share something and then maybe one of you guys can share? So to me, I'll answer the second question, what does leadership mean to me? To me, being a leader means that I'm being inclusive of everybody that is in my team. And if there's someone that's a little shy to speak out or speak up, I'm reaching out to them and I'm encouraging them to sort of share their voice, share their opinion. So yeah, does anyone want to share? Should I just call on someone randomly? Yes, what's your name? Okay, Akshay, can you share something, one of these questions?
So for the first one, I'm here because I just want to improve on my leadership skills, and I just want to become a better leader, and also want to improve on English speaking.
All right, well, thank you for hearing me out. You're doing a great job by sharing out. Anybody else? Okay, if not, we're going to be moving on to our very first activity. But also, for those of you that are here, please do not feel shy or reserved, because we're all going through the same learning process. We're all, like me and Sanghyuk, we're also learning how to adapt and be leaders as well. So please, this is like a safe space for you to share your feelings. All right, so we're gonna move on to our very first activity. And one of the key concepts of being a leader is obviously interacting and talking to people. And the more business, formal, fancy definition is networking, which is the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information or develop professional or social contacts. So, why is networking a good thing? It helps build relationships, whether that's with students of similar ages or even a grown-up or an adult that's working in a career that maybe you want to go into one day. It opens up job, internship, and research opportunities. Me personally, I was able to improve my networking skills and I was able to get an internship over the summer and it was really, really exciting. And overall, it just helps build your reputation and kind of get like word of mouth out about you to this like large community of people. Okay, so this is a very classic activity that we use in a club at our school called Future Business Leaders of America, and this is a speed dating activity. So, essentially what's gonna happen is I want all of the middle schoolers, you guys are gonna come up to the front of the room, and you're gonna form 2 rows. So one row is gonna face this way, one row is gonna face this way. So essentially you should be facing a partner. And you guys will have a minute to get to know each other, and here's some sample questions that you can ask your partner, like what's your name, your grade, your age, what are some of your hobbies, what are some of your favorite and least favorite subjects in school, etc., etc. You just want to get to know that person as quickly as possible in 1 minute. That's a challenge. You only have 1 minute. And then, after that 1 minute is over, the people that are standing here facing the windows on that side of the room, you're gonna move one person over to the left. And we're gonna start the whole process over again. So you get to meet all of the amazing people in this room, and you also get to do a little sample of networking. So I'm gonna have all of our students stand up and then come to the front of the room.
Yeah, and parents, this is also a great opportunity for you to network with other parents. So we encourage you to go around and talk to other parents and not just watch your kids do the networking. You should be doing both.
Everyone should be like lined up with a partner. Do you not have a partner? Okay, I'll be your partner. So you guys will have 1 minute, and then the people standing over here in my row, we're gonna all move one person over to the left. So I will move into his spot. And you move down. Okay? So I'm gonna set a timer for 1 minute. You're gonna try to get to know that person to the best of your ability. Ready, set, go. One person to the left of and you guys are going to move one person back also.
So, to the right, right, our right, and then you, and then we'll and then.
Does everyone have a new partner? Yes, okay. We're going to go for 1 minute. Ready, set, go. Alright, and time is up. We're gonna do the same thing. So, the people over here, you guys are gonna move one person over to the right. The people on this side, you guys are gonna move one person over to the left.
Alright, everyone's right.
Oh, it's everyone.
Okay.
Does everyone have a new partner? Okay, ready? You two. Ready, set, go. What's your Alright, and time is up. We're gonna do the same thing. So we're gonna everyone move to the right. So we move one over to the right. You should have a new partner. You two. I can hear you partners from the side, and I can move partners from here, and you move one from either side. You're gonna move one over. Everyone should down. You guys already met? Yeah. You haven't. Do you want to come up here? You can do like the three-way thing. Or you guys can do a three-way thing over there. Okay. We have 1 minute. Okay, ready, set, go. What are some of your guys' hobbies? On this side, you guys are moving to the right.
That's
Everyone on this side is moving.
Yeah.
Alright.
Like when you hit
Three, two,
freshman
one,
year,
switch.
there's a lot more they give you more like independence, but it's also like more responsibility for you to like finish your work. Yeah, it's more. Yeah, they will become much more like something. Like if you guys know that like teaching you stuff and then like homework and stuff, they like
Okay.
you have to drive yourself. Like there's some things that
1 minute, ready, set, go.
give you.
I don't think we got something to do
I don't do this. I tried out for a sport. Yeah, I tried out.
My favorite right I'm not a fan of Alright, friends. 1 minute is over. Okay, we're gonna do this one more time and then you guys can go back. So everyone's one over. You guys are just taking a break for now. Alright, everyone has a partner or is there doing like a three-way? Well, at this point, we can group note each other. Okay, does anyone want to come over here? Okay, I'll say Alright, ready, set, go.
One is the president. That is the vice
Thank you guys
president.
so much for participating in our little sleeping
Yeah, this is our thing. We do something.
Okay, we will come back now to our lecture. Hopefully that broke ice to everyone, so now you kind of know each other. If you want to like sit next to your new friend that you made, you're welcome to do so. But we will get started with the lecture part. This is kind of like the less fun part, but this will be very meaningful if you haven't heard this before. So the topic we're going to be covering is multiplier versus diminisher. It's a way to encourage other people to actively participate in your team. So does anyone want to guess what this multiplier or diminisher might be?
I would guess multiply is like talking with each other and spreading medicine, while the diminisher is just not talking to each other, like not.
Did you have something to say?
I think multiplier is like radiating the thought, and diminisher is like not being nice or something.
Okay, anyone else from this side here? Oh, yeah.
I think multiplier means increasing productivity and diminisher is decreasing productivity.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, so just to reiterate like the definition of a multiplier versus diminisher, a multiplier is a leader who can really boost and maximize the team's efficiency almost by 200%. And a diminisher is a leader who diminishes the efficiency or productivity, like you said, by almost 50% by discouraging your team members. So these are just some of like the traits of a multiplier versus a diminisher. So let's look at each of these together. So the first one for the multiplier is the talent manager. The talent manager basically attracts and optimizes everyone's talent. So if you have like people in your team, you're seeing what everyone is really good at, what talent they all have, and you're trying to maximize their use to the best of your potential. The empire builder, however, you think you're the best. You think you have all the talents to really do all the work. So you don't really use other people's talents and their resources as much. The next one is the liberator for the multiplier. The liberator basically creates a nice space for people to work together and to kind of think together. While the tyrants, they kind of order people. So you know how like tyrants, kings, they order people to do something. Rather than encouraging people to come up with their own thoughts, they order people to do certain stuff so the team members can really think about what they're doing. The next one is the challenger. The challenger, when coming up with a decision, they debate within their team members. They lay out multiple options and they go through the pros and cons of each. While the know-it-all, they think their solution is the best one. So they choose their favorite solution, and then they go to their team to discuss which one's the best, even though I, the leader, has something in mind and isn't going to change. The next one is similar. The debate maker is similar as the challenger, so I won't go through that. And then the last one is the investor versus the micromanager. The investor kind of teaches people, build up their strengths, build up their skills so that they themselves can do all the work eventually. While the micromanager, let's say I ask someone to lead a team, but if they don't know how to lead a team, I would go and lead a team instead of them. So I'm not really investing in my team members. I am taking over their role, and I would have to do that over and over again. So we'll do like a quick discussion with your neighbors, or you can find your friend that you made earlier. Describe leaders in your life who have had led with multiplier practices versus diminisher practices. How did their behavior impact your growth and your success? So I want you to find someone to talk about it and kind of discuss that with your neighbors.
You want to do it?
Okay, we'll come back from the discussion. Does anyone want to share? Anyone want to share their thoughts?
I had some pretty good ideas over here. What do you guys want to share?
No one want to share? Yeah.
He would be a diminisher.
What characteristics would you say? How about a multiplier? Anyone else?
Yeah. So let's say Obama is a multiplier.
Okay, but how about people you've worked with before, like maybe your teachers, your parents? Any teachers you thought was a multiplier or diminisher? Yeah? Do you have something to share? No? Okay, well, hopefully everyone understands this concept though of multiplier versus diminisher. So now that we know what a multiplier versus diminisher is, we have to know to be a multiplier and at least not be a diminisher. But if you're not conscious of it, it's really easy to be a diminisher accidentally. So we're going to be going over kind of like the tendency, intention, results, and workaround of a diminisher. So here's like a chart. I'll go through kind of one by one. Okay, so the first one is the rescuer. The rescuer tries to solve every single problem. Like if a team gets into a problem that someone else creates, they try to solve that problem every single time. But what that eventually leads to is people don't know how to solve their own problems. So you are the one who eventually finishes solving all the problems. So a workaround to that would be a companion. You help others to solve the problem. You lead them, you teach them how to solve the problem instead of you solving your own problems by yourself. The next one is the pace setter. Pace setter. Pace setters go really fast. I am an example of a pace setter. I like to move things really fast, and that sometimes leads people to maybe give up. But a workaround is to encourage other people in your team to stay inside. You constantly update people on what's going on, and you ask for their feedback. If they think you're going too fast, you would have to slow down. Like even if you have to stay on schedule, you eventually have to slow down so that you don't lose other people in your team. The next one is the optimist. Optimists think positively 24/7, but there's sometimes no empathy involved. So a workaround to that is you have to acknowledge the problems. Like if you're facing a problem, you're not just going like, oh, at least we can do something. Sometimes you have to acknowledge the problem and actually be a companion, like the first one, to help solve that issue. The next one is the strategist. You set strategy 24/7. You are the one who's taking charge of every vision, every mission, no team's input. So what you have to do instead is we encourage you to really give your team members why, what, and how. Like the reason you're doing things, how you're doing things, and what you're doing specifically. And the last one is the perfectionist. You want to get everything to be perfect and excellent, but that can sometimes lead to the team members thinking what I'm doing is not enough. So they eventually end up giving up. So what's really important is for you to set up that standard and that expectation so everyone can know what you're aiming for and for everyone to really follow your expectations. There's a long list of this. There's like at least 10 more of these, but these are just some of the 5 important ones I think is the most common. Okay, and before we end off, I want you to do like a short personal reflection. Did any of the accidental diminisher qualities surprise you? Do you have any accidental diminisher tendencies? And if so, how will you work on it, and how will you hold yourself accountable? This is a silent reflection time. We'll give around 1 minute, and we'll have 2 volunteers share. Be honest with yourself and see what accidental diminishers you have. Okay, does anyone want to share? Anyone? Does any parents want to share? Any parents? No? Right, you have to be the role model of your students, right?
So I have the Diminisher quality, which is optimist, and I think can I see the questions? So, but this surprised me because I thought being optimist is the greatest quality I could have. And then, do you have any accidental diminisher tendencies? I think that's the same thing I have. If so, my thought of my process of thinking on this is I try to resolve the problems while somebody is saying that I have came across this problem. So I try to see that where the problems are coming from, and I try to find out the root cause. So another thing, can I have that slide back? So that companionship, yes, I think I need to work on that. That would improvise the multiplier quality.
I think I relate to the pace setter because I just want to move fast. I want to move fast with a good pace, and it has to be good. Like, the energy should be good, but I also need to mind the time because it's no worth creating a beautifully perfect project after the deadline. So that's what I think about. But sometimes I overdo that, and then lots of people members in your group just give up sometimes at the pace I'm going. So I think I need to work on staying inside with them, right? I need to work on constantly asking them about feedback. Yeah, that's all.
Anyone else? Yeah?
I think like I might be like a perfectionist because I usually want everything to be perfect, and then but once I'm doing something like a group project, or I'm working on something like something art with my friends or something, I just want to do everything by myself and like not let them do it because I don't trust anyone else in the process.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone from this side? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Okay, so now we learned how to not be a diminisher, but we also want to kind of work towards building that multiplier culture instead. So to be a multiplier, you can follow these 4 steps in your team. So number 1, identify your group's values. What are some of the values that you really heavily emphasize in your group, and what do you want everyone in your group to really follow? The next one is to create a community agreement. So community agreement is basically, what are some of the rules in your team that you want to set so that other people don't go above your boundary, or if there's like a certain deadline, certain rules like how many meetings can you be absent for, set that expectations. The third one is to know how will you measure and how will you reward that success. So I'm pretty sure everyone heard of SMART goals, right? SMART goals. This is kind of like SMART goals, measurable. You want to make sure you can measure your multiplier culture so that you know that you're on the right track. And the last one is to think about what are some of the next steps that you can do to make this multiplier culture a reality. So when you go home today and when you go back to your teams, really see if you can kind of use this resource in your team to really be a multiplier.
Alright, thank you, Sanghyuk. So now we're going to move on to another really fun activity, which is our North, South, East, West leadership styles. So essentially, over here on the slides, there's 4 different directions, like the directions of the compass, and we're gonna stand up in a moment, but first, please read the qualities on the slide, and then choose the category, choose the direction that you relate the most to. So for me, I personally feel like I relate the most to the North category because I like to get things done quickly before the deadline, and I do tend to make pretty quick decisions, and I do have a pretty independent work style. So take a few moments, kind of look at all of the qualities, And in your mind, you can share this out with another partner as well. Figure out what direction you are. And then in about 2 minutes, all the students and also parents, you guys can get up and then we're gonna move to different corners of the room. So over here, if you think that you're a north style leadership, you're gonna come over here. If you think that you're an east style leadership, you're gonna come over here. If you think that you're a south style leadership, you're gonna go to the back where the TV is. And if you think that you're a west style leadership, you are gonna go to the area where the check-in desk is. And then within your groups, you guys are gonna ask some of these questions to your other group mates because they all should have the same direction style leadership as you. And you're gonna ask, what are the best and worst parts of that leadership style in your opinion? And how do you relate to the qualities in like the work that you do in like group projects, if you're part of like a club, etc., etc. So 2 minutes to decide, and then you guys can move to your respective areas. And parents, also please get involved so you guys can stand up and move to the different corners of the room.
Just a quick note, you might be like, I'm a northeast, but you have to choose either north or east. You can't choose multiple. Just choose one, whichever one you feel like going to.
Alright, you guys can stand up and you guys can move to your groups. So remember, north is over here, east is over there, south is in the back near the TV, and west is by the check-in table. And parents, feel free to get up and also participate in this activity. To get some have you guys chosen your leadership style? Yeah. Direction. Yeah. East is over there. You guys like setting goals? Do you like setting goals as a kid? Who's good at that? So you guys can choose like one other direction. So it's what Sanghyuk mentioned earlier. Like what other direction there? East or northwest?
Everyone here is the same. That's why we do this in groups. We would like to be that's why
Probably northwest.
Real selection, but are any of you guys like north and south? Like you are like southern leader qualities?
Cute observation. Oh, yeah. How do you think? So for the qualities that I showed there, how do you think these are shown?
And if you guys are going around
So like, I know obviously, right? Which they had other qualities from the leadership that are there. What's the
It turns out that last year, we started at 7:55. But California just passed a law last year that it must start over with the G's, so it's changing. No, it's as much as possible. Change it back. High school.
Yeah. If you want to use it, yeah.
It's a very last sentence for that analogy. Everybody has to agree with it. So all the hard work you want.
I think it's also important to work with other people because even like
Hi guys. This is no, I didn't talk So what parts? So where you're in what parts of life do you go to South.
I guess so, yeah. But especially for
other people to do like set expectations. This is the work that I'm gonna put into it, and then it's usually for like a grade.
You get more used to it. You get more work, but like you
Alright, thank you guys so much for participating in this activity. You guys can go back to your seats. You can sit with your friends that were in the same leadership direction group as you. Because we're gonna have a little reflection discussion. Thanks. Okay. So take a look at these questions. For like the first one, kind of reflect on like some of the qualities. For example, in the group that I was with the Northern leadership style, we talked about having people in your group that didn't like meet the deadlines or weren't putting in the same effort as you. So like try to make sure like you're reflecting on that and what solutions you could maybe bring out of it as well. Okay, does anyone want to share out? Yes.
I definitely did not like anything like that. I find relatively easy to start. And I would use this knowledge by finding people who work fast paced and working with them. So I can group has the same quality, so it's much easier for me to do.
Anyone else? Any parents want to share? Do you want to share? No? Okay, if not, we're going to be moving on to our next sort of lecture-based discussion. So, yeah.
Just to go over the takeaway, like the point of this activity, you observed that there's people who match your personality, your direction, but you've also seen other people in different directions, right? And so if you're working in a team full of leaders, full of passionate people, everyone's gonna have different ways of approaching. But to really make that team a success, see, imagine yourself standing on a compass. Like if you're north, you're standing there, south, east, west. You have to go together towards the middle. Everyone has to meet at the center point so that you can work together and you can actually communicate yourself together. If you're all separated far away, you can't communicate. You're talking about one thing, the other person's talking about the other thing. So I want you to keep that in mind. Compromise might be hard, but it's necessary in a team situation. Okay, now back to kind of not as much fun lecture style. So we're going to be talking something about positive intelligence, also known as PQ. You might, if you hear PQ, you might also think, oh, that sounds similar to IQ, right? Does anyone know what IQ is? IQ, what is IQ? Yes, it's intelligence quotient. It measures how smart you are in a numerical format. But PQ is something different. It's a measure of your mental fitness, and we'll be kind of talking about it.
Is it similar to EQ?
Oh yeah, you also know EQ. Okay, EQ, for those of you who don't know, it's called emotional intelligence. EQ is known, there has been a study that EQ really helps people develop as a leader, but recent studies have actually shown that that may be temporary, and PQ is kind of like a new alternative to that. Okay, so before we talk about the PQ, we'll be defining two words, sage and saboteur. Everyone has sage and saboteur within their own mind. Sage is the wisdom-filled part of ourselves that lead us to recognize, own, self-examine, and take actions. While the saboteur badgers for mistakes, focuses on what's wrong, and always escapes from the situation. Just to kind of illustrate this, when your mind tells you that you should prepare for tomorrow's important meeting, it is acting as your friend, causing positive action. And when you wake up at 3 a.m., you're really anxious about your meeting for like the 100th times, and you're like kind of thinking what you're going to be saying, then that is your enemy. And it is simply exhausting for you to constantly focus on the negative stuff rather than the positive stuff. So that's kind of the difference between sage and saboteur. And within the saboteur, there's something called the master saboteur and an accomplice saboteur. The master saboteur is like the king of all the saboteurs. It finds fault with yourself, others, and all the things, and it steers you only to the wrong direction. And there are some helpers to the master saboteur, such as the judge, the victim, the pleaser, and the avoider. So the judge, like over here, it judges everyone. Like you judge yourself, you judge other people around you, you judge like even like this desk over here, you find fault with it. That desk, that's an accomplice saboteur. A victim, you act as a victim. You're the victim all the time. You're the one who's getting all the pain and suffering. The pleaser, you want to please everyone. You're a people pleaser. You want to make conversations with them just so that they can like you. The avoider, when you're faced with a difficult situation, you avoid it. You just simply move away. You have to get through it. You have to challenge yourself to really surpass that wall, but you tend to avoid it. And lastly, the controller is someone who controls like the team. Right? I tell everyone specifically what to do 24/7. So now defining positive intelligence. Positive intelligence is the idea of how much my brain acts as my friend versus my enemy. For example, in other words, how much it acts as a sage versus a saboteur. So this is kind of an idea from Stanford, and they stated that the most optimal positive intelligence is 3 positive thoughts, 3 sage for every 1 negative thought, saboteur. And that's like the most optimal leadership mindset. For example, me coming here today, maybe one of my positive thought was, oh, there's gonna be a lot of people. I'm going to be doing really well and everything's going to be organized. And maybe one of my negative thought is, oh, what if the technology doesn't work? What if the mic doesn't work? And that's like an optimal level of positive intelligence. So you want to obviously increase your PQ to really reach that stage. And there's 3 steps you can do. It might be self-explanatory, but I'll go through them one by one. The first one is to weaken your saboteur. Make sure you weaken that field, that negative thought pattern. Like if you're constantly unconsciously thinking only the negative thoughts and negative thoughts only, you have to work towards getting away from that. And a way to help that is by labeling a saboteur as a separate entity. So instead of saying, I believe I can't succeed, you can say, my judge believes I can succeed. I believe I can succeed, but it's the judge who's preventing me from succeeding. And I have to surpass that judge to really succeed. The next one is strengthening the stage. You can do this by assessing the ability to explore and kind of like just take action. Like me standing up here, this is my first big event. I was scared, but I just came here and I just started this workshop, and now I can confidently go through the workshop. And lastly is strengthening the PQ brain. You can think of this like working out. So if you want to build muscles, you want to work out, right? You can strengthen the PQ brain by commanding your mind to stop thinking negative thoughts whenever you're thinking. So when you find yourself thinking like negative thoughts repeatedly, you can actually tell yourself, stop. This is not me who's believing that I can't succeed. It's my judge. Yeah, so thank you. That's the end of the positive intelligence presentation, and we'll move on.
Okay. So some of you might be thinking, this is the real meat of the presentation. This is why you came to this workshop. And that's essentially how to get a leadership position. So there's various ways that you can get a leadership position. All of you, by being here, are essentially leaders. You're taking charge of what it means to be a leader. You're taking charge of like your learning and your education. But more specifically, for many of you that are going into like 7th or 8th grade, or many of you that are going into high school, there are a few things that you can do to kind of secure a leadership position, like an officer position. And those can be through school clubs. We'll talk a little bit more about interviews, resumes, and a LinkedIn page, as well as passion projects. Okay, so school clubs, a how-to. So I am currently a senior, and in my freshman year, so 9th grade, I joined a club on our campus called Future Business Leaders of America. I know, the name sounds pretty intimidating, and I was definitely very intimidated joining the club because at our school it's such a massive club, and I didn't really know if I could make an impact within that club. But my brother, who was an officer at the time, he encouraged me to join, and I got involved. So whether it's like art club or a music club, make sure that you are involved. You're attending meetings, you're attending after school events that they have, you're attending maybe practice sessions, you're networking with the officers. So we had a couple of questions during our speed dating activity, and maybe at the end of a meeting that you attend, you can go up to an officer, you can go up to the teacher that advises the club, and you can ask them a couple of questions and kind of make yourself known to them that, oh, like, I'm a prospective member, I'm interested in your club, I'm interested in learning more about this field. And the next thing is officer applications. So at the end of the school year, you'll probably have a system, the club will probably have a system where there's gonna be like a president, a vice president, and then various different officer positions like a social media manager, activities directors, people that plan out all of the events the club has. So within your officer application, there's usually 2 things that they expect. One of them is a written application where they have a couple of questions, and then you would sort of answer those questions like in an essay format, and then you have an interview. So within your written application, some very common questions that we like to ask incoming freshmen and incoming sophomores is like, why do you want to be an officer of this club? What makes this club special to you? So it's kind of similar to like a college essay in the sense some tips for writing a written application. Make sure you're using action verbs like create, initiate, lead. Action verbs show that you actually did something in that club and you kind of like met people and you did things. You didn't just attend the meetings and sit there and not do anything. Another really helpful tip is using numbers. So let's say you got the chance to like compete in a competition. You could say, oh, I competed against 10 other members in this competition and I got 3rd place. Using numbers like that, it helps you, first of all, stay concise, and it also helps the officers and the teachers that are reading your application kind of jog their memory, like, oh, we had this competition, we had these many people, oh, now I remember that student that placed 3rd place. The next step of your school officer position tryout is the interview. Usually, interviews will happen in person, and some of the questions that they like to ask are, why do you want the position? What are some of your strengths and weaknesses? If you go online and you Google common interview questions, you will get a whole bunch, like 100+ really common interview questions, and something that's really helpful is just start preparing for them. So what I like to do if I have an interview for like a school club, for example, is I like to start a blank Google Doc, and I like to put down some of the questions that I think they're gonna ask me. So for example, in a recent interview that I did, one of the questions they asked me was like, what are some of my strengths and weaknesses? So within that doc, you don't wanna write full sentences because you're not gonna be able to memorize full sentences. But I just put down little bullet points, strengths, colon, and I listed out like 3 or 4 of my strengths. Weaknesses, colon, listed out like 2 or 3 of my weaknesses, and how I'm working to improve those weaknesses. And you want to do that for a couple of questions, and really recommend practicing your interview with someone else. So this can be like your friend asking you the questions and you're responding. It can be your parent asking you questions and you're responding to them. It could be a teacher, your older sibling, younger sibling, etc., etc. So,
Just to add on really quick, the point of an interview isn't to answer questions correctly. The point of an interview is to stand out. So if you're answering if you're answering a question really confidently, but you're saying just like a really vague or natural response or a very common response, then you wouldn't stand out. So really take time to brainstorm these interview questions to make sure you can differentiate yourself from everyone else.
and of course, everyone has nerves before you go and speak in front of like people that you probably have no idea who they are. But something that really helps me is fake it till you make it. Pretend like you have the confidence. Pretend like you already got that officer position and you're walking into that room with this confidence, so they see you, and that also makes a really good impression to the people that are doing the interview. Alright, so moving on to resumes and LinkedIn. So for many of you, you guys might be like, I'm way too young to create a resume. I'm way too young to have a LinkedIn. A lot of my friends don't have resumes in LinkedIn, but my father forced me to create one when I was in 7th grade, and it was incredibly helpful. So a resume is essentially like a 1-pager listing all of your like educational experiences, work experience, volunteer experience, any awards or any leadership positions that you might have. And LinkedIn is like a similar thing. It's sort of like a social media, but I like to consider it more of like a online resume where you can list all of the same things. So on the next slide, this is a Harvard resume guide. If you guys search into Google Harvard resume guide, this is like the first link that pops up. But within your resume, you want to keep it to 1 page because the people that are reading this information, they're probably reading thousands of other applicants and thousands of other applicants like their information as well. So you want to make sure that it's very concise. And the resume guide has a lot of great tips. They have like 10 or 12 sample resumes from people that attended Harvard and got internships and jobs out of that. But here are just some like key takeaways, do's and don'ts. Make sure you're using specific language. So like we said, use action verbs like create, initiate, influence, lead. Don't have spelling, grammar errors, no personal pronouns, and like make sure you're consistent with the format. There's a lot of great websites out there that help you build a resume, and they're completely free, so you can use one of those. And another thing that is really, really helpful is like quantify all of your data. So instead of saying, I held meetings throughout the school year, it becomes a lot more specific and a lot better to the person that's reading your resume if I say, organized 14 meetings held weekly on lunches, like weekly on Wednesday lunches to a 200 plus member base. When you're putting numbers in there, it shows the person that's reading the resume, like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, the person is giving me specifics. The person actually, like, I actually held like 20 meetings. Yeah. Okay. The last thing is a passion project. So, I'm sure many of you have heard that colleges are kind of looking for students that are all-rounded or well-rounded, and a great way to showcase some of your passions. I know that some of you guys are interested in like science or video games. A great way to kind of showcase this passion is through a passion project, which is a personally fulfilling activity done outside of school for personal growth and creative satisfaction. So some examples include creating a small business or a nonprofit. For those of you that like video games, you can maybe try to code a video game. You could like start a blog, start a podcast, and some really great ways to get your passion project off the ground and running is use online resources. So you can like check out social media pages. A lot of them have really great tips on how to start a passion project. You could join a passion project that somebody started. So for example, Bloom Institute, it was a passion project that was started by Sanghyuk and his team last year. And they offer like various tutoring services and other like competitions, and now they're offering these kind of workshops as well. So you really have the ability to grow and expand within your passion project. And the last thing is also be and stay consistent with your project, because something to keep in mind for like college applications, I know this is a little far for many of you guys, but they really like to see consistency. They really like to see like, oh, you dedicated this much time to this project that was outside of school, and it really like you're following your passions, you're showing your passions to them. So please like try to stay consistent with your project as well.
Just to connect the tie between this passion project and the whole leadership spiel that we covered in this workshop today. So when you create a passion project, like everyone wants to create a passion project, but it's the part of carrying it out and maintaining it is the difficult part. And you can really use those resources that I provided you today in your team to make sure you can be a multiplier instead of a diminisher, and use your positive intelligence to really train your mind to reach that optimal 70% ratio. One of the most difficult parts is marketing in a passion project, especially if you're doing like an organization like Bloom Institute. My tip for you is to think back to yourself. Like, how did you find out about this information today? Like, why are you here? How did you find out about Bloom Institute initially? Like, a lot of you probably found it out through your school Peach Jar. So that's how I mainly advertise Peach Jar. And I thought of that through my own personal experience. So I want you to think back to your personal experience. It's not really far away from you. All the answers, you have experienced it, and you can really use them to the best of your abilities to make it the best. Speaking of passion projects, we're going to be talking briefly about Bloom Institute and what we do. Hello, we're Bloom Institute. We are a student-led, fiscally sponsored 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we foster curiosity and encourage students to explore a wide variety of specialized subjects. And here are just some pictures that we have. Previous slide. Here are just some pictures that we have from in-person event. This one's actually a Texas chapter that we have. We have a Dallas, Texas chapter, high schoolers who led kind of their own chapters to middle school students. We have the San Jose, the Mountain View. Actually, one of our Mountain View representatives is in the back volunteering there. And you can also see Aiden over there. Aiden's also volunteering there, and Chloe on the top. So we have an excellent team of volunteers who really lead this mission to foster curiosity to middle school students. And we do this through multiple different ways. Our major way is through non-traditional courses on Zoom. So in the past, we started with something called a business boomers, where we taught entrepreneurship last school year, and we had over 150 participations, and that is why we expanded to Bloom Institute. I've actually had some people come up to me on the street, some of my past students who recognized me, I'm not making this story up, who recognized me and said, "Oh, hi, I really enjoyed your entrepreneurship lecture last time," so you can really make that impact too. We also, over the summer, held an international competition where we had around 15 nations and 12 US states participate. We had a hackathon, and we awarded them with prizes. And we also have chapter events. This was the Mountain View chapter we held a few days ago at the Memorial Park over there. And then we also attend conferences. You can see me over there, and then the EVP, Executive Vice President Ian Yoon, in that picture. Yeah, so that was kind of the end of our workshop today. We're going to be having a Q&A session now. So questions, please feel free to ask. Any questions? Anything from leadership that we covered today to any other questions that you may have mentioned on the forum? Any personal questions? Anything about Bloom Institute, how to do passion projects? Yes.
So what I'm kind of limited by is how do you write a resume and write all of your basically your entire life until then in one page.
Yeah, so it's definitely a very daunting task, for sure. Something that I like to do is, first of all, don't worry about fitting everything into one page. You can start a blank Google Doc or a blank, you can write it down even, and just write down all of the leadership experiences that you've had, all of the awards that you've had, if you've taken classes at your middle school, or you've taken classes outside, or if you've done tutoring, if you've done volunteer work. So don't worry about fitting it into one page just yet. And then from there, once you've dumped everything from your brain out onto the paper, from there you can start going and seeing if there's two events that are pretty similar to each other, you can combine them together. And you can keep doing that. And then over time, your resume will get a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter, and it'll become more concise. I also really recommend checking out the Harvard Resume Guide. If you just search it into Google, it's the first link that's there. And they have a lot of really great example resumes that you can see, how they formatted it and how they wrote out specific things. So you can also use those as a template and kind of model the same things that you want to say there. Any other questions? Okay, if you guys do have questions but you're a little too scared to ask them in front of everybody, you can feel free to come up to me or Sanghyuk after. But thank you guys so much for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we officially end, this is the quote that we brought out at the beginning of our workshop. When you were made a leader, you weren't given a crown. You were given the responsibility to bring out the best in others. And hopefully throughout this workshop, you've kind of kept this in the back of your mind and seen how you would be able to use that networking skills, the multiplier versus diminisher, positive intelligence, your leadership traits, to really bring out the best in others and make sure your team can succeed. Thank you. That's officially the end of our workshop today. If you're interested, if you have any questions, you can always email us at info@bloomins.org. You can also check out our Instagram at bloomins.org_, or you can visit our website at bloomins.org. And we would greatly appreciate if you could fill out this feedback form of our workshop today. If everyone could, both students and parents could fill out this feedback form, that would be great. We'll also be sending this through email. And also, we are kindly asking for donations. Holding this workshop and holding like all of our programs do cost money. Like it costs money to really rent this facility, to get these mics, prepare these slide decks, and we